Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We explore the darkest, most chilling, real-life horror stories from across the world. In tonight's story, we follow a young park ranger on what should have been an ordinary job patrolling the dense forests of an Appalachian National Park. But when hikers begin vanishing without a trace, and strange creatures stalk the woods after dark, this ranger uncovers a terrifying truth buried deep in local folklore and deeper still in a government cover-up. Being watched from the treetops, finding mutilated bodies in abandoned cabins, hunted by shapeshifters and ancient spirits. This is the kind of nightmare that makes you think twice before stepping off the trail. Stay tuned and remember, in the Appalachian Mountains, some legends are very, very real. Viewer discretion is advised. To start off, my name is Marshall. I started my job as a park ranger a little around 6 months ago. I got this job fairly quickly because the other rangers quit 10 months in. I thought it was very odd, but the pay was nice and I've always loved nature and animals, so I thought this would be the right job for me. For the first 2 months, nothing really happened. It was the middle of summer, so besides the annoying buzzing mosquitoes and the restless spiders that would somehow build a full spider web overnight around my Jeep, everything was normal. On the third month was when things started to get weird. We've gotten reports of hikers gone missing without a trace and stories from campers who talk about hearing weird wailing deep in the woods at night. We thought it to be no more than just a few kids goofing off in the woods or hikers who just wandered off the trail eventually to be found later, but it wasn't that straightforward. It all took a turn for the worst when I got a call about another missing hiker. This time it was close by my cabin, so naturally I was selected to go check it out. I planned to walk about 8 miles into the woods, so I packed the essentials and began my trek at 1,400. It was around the 4th mile when I started to see what I had assumed happened. I found the tracks of the hiker, but about a mile behind him were tracks of what looked to be a very large feline-like animal, except this thing's paw was bigger and wider than my foot, and I wear a size 17. I also noticed the impression it had left in the dirt. It barely left one at all. Not only was this thing big, it was stealthy. That's when I remembered an old Cherokee guide named Eli who sometimes helped us clear trails deeper in the forest. He used to warn us about the wampus cat, a great cat spirit said to haunt these mountains. According to him, if you see its tracks but not its shadow, you best pray. The thought alone sent a cold shiver down my spine. I walked around more, but I found that the beast's tracks had disappeared. I looked around for more, but to my shock, I found claw marks scaling up a very large tree. This is something that I have never encountered before. This thing was big, stealthy, and could scale a tree in one bound from the looks of it. I was horrified to say the least, so I unpacked my hunting rifle, loaded around, and started walking again. Eventually, I came upon the hiker's body and, man, this thing was barely recognizable. I assumed it to be a male no older than 26H/. It was shredded into ribbons. The arms and legs had been gnawed off sloppy, and he had deep claw marks from his collarbone to his pelvis. Through the gashes in his chest, I could see that some of his vital organs were missing. I couldn't even stomach to look at his face. His nose was gone, and his bottom jaw had been torn off. If he had any expression on his face before he went, I can 100% guarantee you that it was pain and fear. This person had suffered a death so gruesome that couldn't even imagine how much pain he was in while his last breath escaped his body. I radioed dispatch and told them my location, and decided to stick next to the body just in case any predator tried to drag it off. Dispatch was about 45 minutes away from my location to collect the corpse, but it was getting dark and fast. I recalled an old saying from the nearby town of Green Hollow: when the woods go black, no man should be in them. For those who haven't been in a forest before, the darkness is otherworldly compared to an area with few trees. But that was when a drop came down on my head. I thought it was rain, but when I pulled out my flashlight to see what it was, and it was crimson red blood. I pointed my shaking flashlight hand to the top of the trees and my light landed right on it. I don't know what it was, but this thing was massive. It had the head of a lion without the mane with blood around its mouth, the body of a tiger with a solid black body ripped like a professional athlete, but no stripes, and the glowing yellow eyes that reflected its lust for blood of a panther, and the paws that would make a bear's paw look like minuscule. This thing had to be about 6 feet tall on all fours and about 340 pounds of solid muscle. It let out a roar that was a mix of a tiger and a jaguar. Expect it was deeper and echoed throughout the wild, forest shaking me. to the core, and making my soul almost leave my body. I knew that no matter what god I prayed to, it wouldn't help against this thing. This thing was primal, fierce, and from what I had to guess, had been stalking this territory for decades. Right when it was about to pounce on me, the helicopter showed up with a spotlight and flashed it down on me as fast as the beast appeared. It disappeared, without a trace. I was so terrified by the experience, I blacked out on the spot. I woke up in my cabin with my boss next to me bedside. He asked me what happened, and I told him what I saw. As I was telling him my story, I saw a slight expression of fear on his face, but after my story, he told me I must have hallucinated the whole event due to the shock of seeing such gore and passed out due to the lack of an overactive imagination. He quickly changed the subject and told me to get some rest and gave me the rest of the week off. In the third month, nothing really happened, but I started to notice every time I went for an expedition or my own hike, I would get the feeling of eyes watching me from the top of the trees or something following behind me, matching my steps. Some locals whispered of the watchers, unseen spirits of the deep woods that followed the unlucky. I used to think it was a story to scare kids. Now, I wasn't so sure. I started carrying a desert eagle with me, but if it was the creature I had seen last month, I knew it would be as effective as shooting it with a pellet gun. The next month on a Monday night, I awoke to my radio. Buzzing it was my boss. He had told me that he'd received a call from some campers who strayed too far into the forest and had started to hear wailing in the woods. I thought it was kids just messing around, so I took the job and got in my job and was on my way. When I arrived at the campsite, it was a horror show. The tents looked to be destroyed by sheer force, and the campers' cars looked to be destroyed by trauma that could only be accomplished by being T-boned by cars going 90 in a school zone. But the worst part is, I found the campers, their body parts were all over the campsite and blood-stained every area. Knowing better this time, I bought a shotgun and loaded it with nothing but buckshot. I put my headlamp on and started searching the area for what could have caused such devastation in such a short amount of time. From my investigation, I found footprints of what looked to be of human origin. I recalled a chilling tale told by an elder ranger about Bearwalker, a cursed human who could assume the form of a bear to exact vengeance or guard ancient grounds. I had always dismissed it as a campfire story. Until now, he was illuminated by moonlight, but from what I could see, he was tall, very tall. He looked to be about 7'0" he was. Had long arms, long hair, and long legs. He had a athletic build. His hair was very long and dark, reaching to the middle of his back, and he wore a bearskin coat. He turned back somehow, knowing he was being studied, but in the blink of an eye, he missed me. He turned back around and started walking. I followed him, wanting to know if he was with the campers. He took about 10 steps before something started happening to him. He doubled over on his hands and knees and sounded to be in pain. I wanted to rush over to help him, but before I could, he let out an otherworldly roar. He slowly shifted from human to a gigantic, monstrous bear. He looked to have grown to 9 feet and sported a scar on his face. He was the size of a sov and had red eyes that glowed in the night. Faster than anything I've ever seen, he took off deeper into the forest, running over tree as if he was a bulldozer running through cardboard. My hair was racing and I was pale as a snow. I didn't move until it was sunrise, and then I booked it back to my cabin and notified my boss about what happened. I didn't tell him the part about the man-bear. Instead, I told him that a bear had mauled the campers. And he accepted my report, and I sat on my bed the rest of the day thinking about what I have gotten myself into. It's the 6th month, and it might be my last month alive. I'm in my cabin, all my furniture against my door, while an angry creature is trying to get in. I have nothing but my shotgun and a few rations to last me, but from the looks of it, I might not make it though the night. If I survive, I'll be sure to post more about my job, but for now, the thing at my door is broken through my dresser and my couch won't hold it back for long. Hello guys, it's Ashki. Sorry I've been MIA for a while. That last fight really took a lot out of me. After I killed the bastard, I got up and immediately collapsed from blood loss, I guess. I woke up 4 days later in a hospital. My fight resulted in 2 broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, and scar across my chest. Adrenaline is a hell of a thing to have, I guess. While looking at the scar on my chest, the door opened and a nurse, tall, blonde, beautiful nurse with glasses and blue scrubs came in and said in a southern accent, "Hey, sleepyhead, look who decided to finally wake up." She chuckled. I gave a hearty laugh and said, Well, I guess I'm like Sleeping Beauty, and you're my Princess Charming should go back to sleep so you could give me a kiss to wake me from my slumber," and ended it with a wink. The nurse then replied while blushing and laughing, "So charming. While you were asleep, a man came by and left you this note. If you anything else, sweetheart, just let me know. My name is Melinda, by the way," she said with a wink while walking out the door and shutting it slowly behind her. The letter looked like something from a high-ranking government organization with gold edges around it and an odd-looking stamp on it. The front had the letters HC on it. Strange, I thought to myself. I opened it and it read the following: "Good morning, Mr. Diggin. We heard about your little scuffle you had with a very big bear 4 days ago. We just want you to know that everything is okay. The problem has been taken care of. The park is under new management now and 25. Zero has been deposited into your account. There is more in the future if you keep up the good work, and remember, what goes on in the park stays in the park from hazard control." I reread the letter over and over again just to see if it would make sense. This couldn't be real. I checked my bank account and in it, like the letter said, was 25-0. How did they know about the monster I faced, and why are they paying me money to keep quiet? I packed my things, got the nurse's number, and headed out back to HQ to see what the hell was going on. 1 2-hour drive later and I was back at HQ. I showed up just in time, so see men in all black suits with black sunglasses and briefcases walking around and interview the park rangers. I then heard a familiar voice say, "Well, if it isn't the man himself, I'll be damned you actually made it out alive." It was my good friend Hector. Me and him have been park rangers together for 3 years. He and 3 others are my closet friends. "Of course I did. You didn't think that thing could take this," I said jokingly while flexing. I then greeted him with firm handshake and a hug. I gritted my teeth a little because his shoulder made contact with my scar. "So you're not made out of steel like I though, huh?" he said while laughing and patting me on the back. "Only some parts of me," I replied with a grin. Our friendly encounter was interrupted by 2 men who were taking our laptops from the offices and putting me into the back of a black van. I tried to run after them to stop them, but I was grabbed by Hector. "Just what the hell happened while I was gone, Hector?" I asked him angrily. He looked at me with a troubling look and pulled me in for a hug, and he whispered, "We can't talk here. They've got eyes and ears everywhere. Even all of the cabins have been bugged. If you want to talk, meet me in the woods at the fire pit at 300. And I'll tell you everything." We both looked at each other, nodded, and he left the cabin, but not without patting me on the back. Around 200 was when I was awoken by footsteps outside my cabin. I peeked through the windows and saw men with hazmat suits, body armor, flashlights, and AR-15s patrolling the grounds. What the hell happened while I was gone? I then thought to myself, "Hector, I hope you know what you're doing." Around 250 was when I snuck out a window and booked it to the forest without anyone. Finding out, surprisingly, me and Hector meet at the campfire and walked 5 miles into the forest just to be safe. He led me to a small cabin with a fireplace and a mini kitchen. We walked in and we both took a seat at the table. He pulled out a cheap-looking laptop. The first report that stood out to me was under the report named The Doll Maker. I remember that years ago, locals spoke in hushed tones about an old crone, a witch who once lived deep in these woods. They said she crafted dolls from animal bones and human hair. Children were warned never to stray too far from the trails, or they'd become her next doll. No one knew if she was real, but the fear was. Now, I wonder, had something darker taken her place? Or had she never truly left? The ranger assigned to this was Chaska, was given the assignment of investigating a very strange case. While I was gone, there was escalated reports of hikers going missing in a certain area of the forest. Some rangers would say that while on late-night patrols, they would hear cries for help and cries of pain deep in the forest. Chaska didn't waste any time taking up this case and set out to go into the woods. Around the 4-mile mark, he started finding strange tracks in the forest, not quite human, but not animal. It was like a mix between the two. Things only got stranger when he started finding bloody hiking equipment. He then started finding body parts, which included a human tongue, 2 right feet, and a severed leg from the thigh down. The weather that day has a forecast for a thunderstorm, so he knew he needed to find shelter and fast. He then found an abandoned cabin deep in the woods. Thinking to himself whether he'd brave the rain or stay dry, he went with the latter and decided to go into the cabin. In the report, he claimed that his was a strange cabin. Instead of being old and run down, the cabin was free of dust and cobwebs and looked as if someone or something had been living here taking care of it. He walked down the hallway and found a bed, decided to camp the night out in the cabin. He unpacked his bag and started to inspect the cabin. He walked around the cabin looking at all the well-kept furniture. He noticed that the floor had been recently swept. That was when he noticed deep claw marks in the floor leading to the basement. The door had been left cracked. And downstairs, he smelled a strong smell of iron, and he heard humming coming from downstairs. He took his gun and flashlight and walked downstairs, and slowly made his way downstairs and noticed how dark it was. He found a light switch and turned it on. The room was filled with bodies skinned and hung on the wall. These must have been the missing hikers. Their faces had the look of fear and shock glued on it. Fresh blood flowed on the concrete floor. He noted that he slipped and fell unconscious, but was awoken 30 minutes later by the front door, open with great force, and he heard screaming coming from the hallway. He turned off the light, hid under the stairs gun still drawn. He then described what happened. What made its way down the stairs was a man? No woman? No, something that simply mimicked the human form. Dragging behind it was a hiker male who couldn't have been over 27. His screams had stopped. I guess he got knocked out on the stairs coming down. The creature looked like the photo of that thing from the Russian sleep experiment. It was tall, gray, and had long extremities. Its hands ended with sharp claws that sharped the ground, and its face had no lips nor had eyelids. It was completely hairless and sharp, jagged teeth that showed through a continuous manic smile. It had a shrill, childish voice mimicking that of a young female child, but had no obvious features that gave away age or gender. It spoke. "My dolly is missing an arm and I need to make to me a new one. Will you please help me?" It asked the man, knowing that he wouldn't respond. The creature then hung the man feet first from the ceiling and walked to a bench and took out what looked to be a very long, sharp, jagged knife. The creature started sawing at the man's arm. He awoke and started screaming. "Careful now, you'll wake up, Dolly," the creature said while laughing mockingly at the man. He either died from blood loss or passed out from shock because after the creature was done, he didn't move. The creature then made its way to an old-time radio and started playing a distorted version of Tiptoe Through the Tulips. He couldn't see what it was doing, but from the way that it looked, the creature was sewing something. When it was finished, I was terrified at the sight. It was a doll that stood 3 feet tall, made completely out of human flesh. The sight almost made him gag and vomit, but he couldn't blow his cover. The creature then smacked the radio and it started playing Living in the Sunlight, and it started dancing with the doll. Blood was spraying everywhere and the doll came undone. Not only was this creature taking body parts, it was taking organs, because what spilled out of the doll was a human heart and liver. "Dolly," the creature exclaimed, "you dropped your organs again. Looks like you'll need new ones." It made an evil grin and liked towards the man while picking up the knife. The ranger, though he had enough, he booked it up the stairs. "Dolly, look, we found you a friend. Why don't you go say hi?" the creature said. Cheerfully, the ranger's blood went cold as he turned behind him and saw the doll attempting to replicate running coming up the stairs after him. The ranger took a shoot and the doll creature fell down the stairs. He knew he had to act fast, so he quickly ran to the room and unpacked some matches and rubbing alcohol he had packed. He doused the cabin as much as he could and lit a match, escaping the cabin with his life. He turned back, and from the window he saw the creature in one and the doll in the other window waving goodbye to him. The ranger was found 2 miles from HQ, dehydrated and in a state of shock. When he was treated, he talked to the head ranger about what he saw. After that meeting with the head ranger, it is said by some rangers, he was approached by 2 men in black suits and taken to a site off base to talk. When he returned, he was different. He was more quiet and reserved. Some rangers say he spends most of his time in the woods away from other rangers. I looked up at Hector in a cold sweat. "It gets worse, Ash. Read the second one." With great hesitation, I clicked the next file. The title of this one was The One Who Wanders the Woods. The old folks in Green Hollow called it the Long Shadow, a spirit that haunts lost travelers and feeds on their fear. If it speaks your name, they say, your soul is marked. I had always laughed off such stories, but not anymore. The ranger assigned to this one was named Adriel. He was given the task of investigating reports of a shadowy figure lurking in the woods. At night, he decided to start his mission at 300. He reported to the area where the figure has been spotted. Around 350, he spotted the figure and tailed it to a small cabin. As soon as he walked in, the door slammed behind him. He noticed that the cabin was as bigger on the inside as it was on the outside. The walls had a strange 1940s kind of wallpaper on it with old paintings of farms and animals. He walked into the kitchen and was greeted by a gruesome sight. The walls were drenched in blood, and all the knives, forks, and even spoons were covered in blood and clear fluid he assumed to be cerebral spinal fluid. He then stumbled into the living room to see what I had assumed to be a couple of hikers sitting next to each other on the couch, watching a TV with nothing but static on it. Their face had been carved from ear to resemble a everlasting smile. Their eyelids had been ripped off, keeping their face in a continuous expression of astonishment. He then studied the living room more and noticed something moving on the staircase, and that was when the shadowy apparition appeared before me. It had the form of a tall person, but its arms were too long for its body. Its legs were skinny and unstable looking. It was tall and thin and lithe. Its image became clearer, and he could see it in detail. Its eyes were bright red. Its flesh was rotting away. The skin that still clung to the bones was gray and discolored. It basically looked like an awkward zombie. It smiled at him, but it had few teeth. The teeth it did have were sharp and bloody. It stepped towards him. It spoke his name. He stood his ground. He could feel it feeding off the fear. He found it hard to stay calm and was petrified. He asked it what it wanted. It just kept repeating his name, over and over and over. It advanced towards him and was in front of me faster than he could blink. It touched his face and picked him up by his neck and threw him through the bathroom door. He fell down and hit his head on the tub to the left, a gash in the back of his head. He looked up to see the thing walking slowly and arrogantly towards him. He then took out his flashlight and flashed the creature multiple times. It let out a small yell. It then lunged at him and wrapped its large hands around his throat. And it laughed and laughed. It laughed demonically. It laughed like a madman. All it did was laugh. The ranger then grabbed a can of hairspray and a lighter and then burned the creature's face it let go, and the ranger booked it out of the cabin. 2 days later, the ranger was about to report what he found to the head ranger but was intercepted by 2 men in black suits. The ranger returned to work but hasn't been the same person ever since. "Holy shit, dude," I said while leaning back in my chair, stretching and rubbing my eyes. "These people appeared out of nowhere after your fight with that monster. Since then, all strange activity at the park has been amplified," Hector said. "Do you think it's because of them? Do they have something to do with it?" I replied. "I don't know, but whatever's happening at our park is also happening at other parks too. Take a look at this." He took the laptop, but as soon as he was about to show me what he was talking about, we heard a knock at the door. We drew our guns and got ready for confrontation. "Who is it?" Hector said in a deep voice. "It's us, yeah, big dummies now, open up," replied the voice. It was Chaska and Adriel. "How did you know we were going to be here?" I said, surprised. "Come on, you think we wasn't going to notice you two missing from your cabins this late at night?" We both looked at each other and shrugged and let them inside. They both walked in and kicked their feet up on the table, knocking my tea over in the process. "Oops," said Chaska. "My bad. You don't look different to me," I said while getting up to get paper towels. He then replied, "Of course not. That's an act I gotta put up for the suits so they don't keep track on me. Now listen, boys, I know you two have been looking into this, but it's bigger than you think it is," he said while rocking in his chair. "That's right, Ash. We've heard that the new guys want to send me, Hector, and Chaska to Alaska for some team-building event within 2 weeks. Apparently it's coming from high up," Adriel says with his arms crossed, focusing on me. I scratch my head for a bit. This is all weird to me. All have had encounters with something otherworldly, and now they're sending you to Alaska for some team-building event. Something isn't right here. I look at each of them, nodding my head, and we walk out of the cabin back to our cabins where we get ready for our trip to Alaska. And that brings us to the end of tonight's story. A job in the forest. Reports of missing hikers. Strange sounds after dark. For one young park ranger, it should have been routine, but instead, it led to a nightmare hidden in the heart of the Appalachian wilds. For centuries, locals have spoken of wampus cats, watchers, and the cursed deep woods, but folklore often comes with a warning, and sometimes that warning is ignored. Perhaps the most disturbing is the role of so-called hazard control, because when a government-backed group starts paying people to stay quiet, you have to wonder, how many other stories like this are out there sealed away in classified files, erased from public record? And what if some of those things are still out there, watching? So if you ever find yourself deep in the Appalachian forests and the trees go silent and the shadows seem to move, remember, sometimes it's not what you see that you should fear. It's what sees you. Stay safe, stay aware, and as always, thanks for watching.